Hello everyone, Mike here, and since we just had the brand new Godzilla vs. Kong film come out this past Wednesday, and I am a little bit of a fan of giant monster movies. Just a bit. I thought I would take a moment to share my personal top 10 favorite Godzilla films. Now, these are not necessarily the top 10 best Godzilla films, just my personal favorites. So let's get right into it. Number 10, Mothra vs. Godzilla. This one holds a special place in my heart because a number of years ago, back in the days when Blip still existed, a number of video makers were brought together in a bit of a collab, each one reviewing one of the Godzilla films. And the one that I got was Mothra vs. Godzilla. So I put a lot of thought and research into this particular movie. It is a lot of fun. This is the first crossover between two Toho monsters. We have a real jerk of a villain in this movie who not only tries to capitalize on Mothra's egg, but tries to kidnap the twin fairies. Ironically, exactly what the villain in Mothra's solo movie did. The battle between the monsters is pretty cool. First, Godzilla versus Mothra, and then, of course, Godzilla taking on the two larval stage Mothras that come out of the egg that I mentioned a little earlier. Also remember, this film ended up with the suit getting broken around the mouth area because the suit actor had a little bit of trouble seeing what he was doing and ended up falling during one of the scenes, and it's still in the movie when he falls, hits I think one of the buildings, and it ends up breaking the costume. But in general, it is a fun movie and a good start towards Godzilla facing other Toho monsters. Number 9, Return of Godzilla. Now, I need to preface here that this is not Godzilla 1985. There is no Raymond Burr. There is no Dr. Pepper product placement. No, I'm talking the original 1984 Return of Godzilla, which I don't think was even called Return of Godzilla in Japan. I think it was just called Godzilla. This is considered the start of the Heisei series. And after years of Godzilla becoming more and more child-friendly and more silly, this is where they decided they were going to bring him back to being the scary monster that he had been. And I think they did a good job with it. Although there are times where his face actually looks a little bit derpy. Obviously not intentionally, because they were trying to make this much more serious and much darker take. It was pretty cool to see Godzilla being a villain again. Taking out buildings, just wrecking everything, not having another monster to face. It was just him versus the world, basically. They introduced the Super X, which, ironically enough, had pretty good success against Godzilla, yet when they brought it back in the next movie, they didn't really seem to try doing what worked before. This was a good starting point for what would be my favorite era of Godzilla films. And while I know a lot of fans don't like it, although I think a lot of that dislike is more for the 85 version than the original, this is definitely one that I always enjoy checking out. Number 8, Shin Godzilla. This one holds a very special place in my heart because this was the first Japanese Godzilla film that I saw in theaters. Coming out in 2016, this had a limited theatrical run here in America, and a theater about an hour and a half away from me was showing it, so I went, checked it out, and it was so awesome to be able to see a Japanese Godzilla film on the big screen. They took some interesting directions with this one. Admittedly, the kind of goofy first appearance of Godzilla with the weird face and all, it's kind of odd, but it was interesting to watch him evolve throughout the process of the movie, and just the amount of power he had and what he was able to do was just amazing. And I really enjoyed getting a chance to see this on the big screen. Number 7. Godzilla vs. Mecha Godzilla. Though this was close to the end of the Showa series. They still had one more movie afterwards, but this is when we were starting to reach the end. And then they brought in Mecha Godzilla. And I love how they did this one. Because even though the title was Godzilla vs. Mecha Godzilla, you knew you were going to get Mecha Godzilla. They start out teasing something else by having what appears to be Godzilla himself coming in and wreaking havoc, which was weird because at this point Godzilla was a straight up hero. And then he has a battle against Anguirus and ends up kind of doing the King Kong dinosaur jaw breaking thing to poor Anguirus. During that fight, we start to discover, though, this is not Godzilla. He seems to have under his scales metal. Eventually, of course, the real Godzilla shows up. They have their big fight. We actually get the first appearance of actual Mecha Godzilla. And just the weapons and the different kinds of attacks that Mecha Godzilla had just made it so awesome seeing these for the first time. Because so many monsters have different kinds of attacks, but Mecha Godzilla had like 5 or 6 different attacks all his own. And it was just so cool for the first time to see Godzilla facing an opponent like this. Number 6. Godzilla vs. Destroyer. This one was such a big deal that news stations in America were talking about it. Now, Godzilla had not been seen in American screens since Godzilla 1985. And this is now 95. Nobody in America had seen a Godzilla film. But, well, had seen a Godzilla film since then. Obviously, the Showa series had numerous plays on TV and video. But this was still a big enough deal that everyone was talking about it because it was announced that Godzilla was definitely going to die. And the way they did it, with Godzilla coming in and right from the beginning, you can see a difference in his appearance, and he has this character created by nuclear testing was basically turning into a giant nuclear reactor and was melting. Just knowing that he's gonna die, and when he goes, he's gonna take out the entire planet with him. And then, of course, we got Destroyer, who goes through several evolutions throughout the course of the movie, kind of like Godzilla and Shin Godzilla would do later. I like how even with the death, though, of Godzilla already being told that it's going to happen, with Godzilla Jr., they do give you we could possibly do something with this character later. They didn't. When they got to the Millennium series, they just started from scratch. But they ended it where it was definitely a conclusive death for Godzilla, but still left an opening if they wanted to do more. Number 5. Godzilla Final Wars. This, in a lot of ways, is less of a Godzilla film and more of a sci-fi martial arts action film that borrowed heavily from The Matrix, as many films did at the time because The Matrix was still super, super popular at this time. This was, of course, directed by Ryuhei Kitamura, who is definitely more known for his martial arts action films, like Versus, Alive, things of that type. This was the end of the Millennium series, and they wanted to go out with a bang. So they brought back practically every monster that they had ever used and had Godzilla pretty much wipe the floor with every last one of them, including 98 TriStar Zilla, as he was known there, whom Godzilla proceeded to just completely destroy very, very quickly. This did have a lot of pretty cool martial arts action, although it did suffer from following along the whole Matrix thing, including having shots of them doing a big move, the screen freezes, it twists around the characters, and then they start moving again. This, of course, was used in Matrix, and everybody was borrowing it afterwards. It was a lot of fun. Really awesome seeing all those monsters together again, much like when they did Destroy All Monsters, which, again, was expected to be the final Godzilla film. But this is a really fun movie. Number 4. Godzilla vs. Biollante. I kind of wish this one had done better in its initial theatrical run. It has become really popular since then, but initially it did not do well. And they tried a lot of different things with this one, and when it didn't succeed, they kind of went back to the traditional formula, which, fair enough. It's what people liked. The original Godzilla was very much talking about the dangers of nuclear testing. This one went into the dangers of bioengineering, as we have a scientist take cells of Godzilla, combine them with a plant, and somewhere in there he also has the soul of his dead daughter, and creates this just like abomination plant monster called Biollante, who has 2 forms, and the second form is my favorite, because when it's bigger, she's bigger than Godzilla. She's got this kind of crocodile mouth filled with teeth. Not just around the sides, but like all the way through, just teeth everywhere. And the battle between Biollante and Godzilla is brutal. There's, impalements, blood, gore. This was a brutal monster fight. I consider this the proper start of the Heisei series. As I mentioned earlier, Return of Godzilla was technically the start of it, but I don't know that they were actually intending to make a full series again. If this is successful, we'll make more. But initially, I think they were just looking at Return of Godzilla as its own thing. We're going to make a Godzilla movie. We'll see how it goes. This is the movie where they decided, okay, we're going to tell a longer story, and the future movies are going to stick to the same continuity. And they introduced Miki, the telepathic main character who would stick around for the rest of the Heisei series. And one of the reasons I like the Heisei series so much is because each movie has that continuity. The Showa series, they were all pretty much their own movie. The Millennium series are all pretty much their own movie. I love the continuity in the Heisei series. Number 3. Godzilla vs. King Ghidra. Speaking of the Heisei series, this is probably my favorite of the Heisei series. I love the battles between Godzilla and King Ghidra. I kind of get a kick out of the whole time travel thing, even if it doesn't really work in a lot of cases. I admit I did get a kick out of the Spielberg joke. What I also kind of liked was we get a rare occasion of Ghidra as kind of a good guy. Initially, we got Godzilla, horrible, he's destroying everything. We eliminate him. We get King Ghidorah showing up. He's destroying everything. We bring Godzilla back. He defeats Ghidorah. Now he's destroying everything again. So we get Mecha King Ghidorah. And it's crazy. This movie's crazy. But I loved it. This is just such a fun movie. Number 2. Gojira. Yes, I'm sure a lot of people would have expected this to be number 1, but the original Gojira is my number 2. And it is probably the one I've watched the most amount of times. This is one that I will put on just every so often just to watch, just to see where the character came from. A lot of people, even now, still think of Godzilla as very silly. Then you look at the first movie and there is nothing silly about it. It is dark, it is bleak, it is grim. I mean, we got scenes of children crying over their dead parents. We're seeing the destruction that Godzilla is causing. We even have a scene during Godzilla's rampage of a mother with her 2 children saying to them, "Don't worry, we're going to be with your father again soon." This is not the funny Godzilla that a lot of people see the character as. This was very dark and very well made. This is another one where I don't think they had any plans for any kind of sequel, especially given that they pretty much kill Godzilla off. There is no, oh, he might still be around. No, they kill him. He is done when it's over. And, I mean, it's a classic. It is the original, and as far as best, very possibly, but not quite my favorite. That goes to number 1. Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah. Giant monsters all-out attack. I love this movie. This one, a lot of people would be wondering, yeah, it's a good movie. Why is this one your favorite? This was my first uncut Godzilla film. I had seen, film movies on TV with the dub, with a lot of stuff cut out of it, either for time or whatever. But this was the first time I rented this movie the first time. Watched it in Japanese. No edits, nothing like that. And this was the first time I ever saw a Godzilla film as it was meant to be seen. I really, really enjoyed it. They went in a little bit of a different direction with Godzilla. Instead of being created by nuclear testing, he was pretty much the spirit of people who'd been killed due to Japan's wartime aggression during World War II. He was kind of seen as a force of nature punishing Japan. And, I mean, they gave him pure white eyes, no pupils, and he was a force of nature in this movie. This is another one of those rare occasions where King Ghidra is a good guy, as he, Mothra, and for a short time Baragon are all trying to stop Godzilla. Baragon doesn't even get his name in the title, and, well, he's taken out rather easily. Although I gotta say, the suit actress for Baragon, if you haven't seen the clips on YouTube of her in the costume doing the roar, it is the most adorable thing. I love it. I also really enjoy our human characters in this movie. I think they came off very well, and they added to this movie. With a lot of these movies, the main focus is going to be the monster action. You're going to still have your human characters, but you're not really worrying as much about them. But I like the human characters in this movie. And this is another one where you get to see a lot of the destruction that Godzilla causes. There is a scene where we see a woman in the hospital after a Godzilla attack. And when Godzilla comes by during his second attack, she sees him, she's freaked out, he starts to walk past and she thinks, oh, thank goodness, I'm okay. Then his tail comes swinging in and destroys the building. A lot of these movies, you don't see the impact that his destruction has on people. But much like the first one, you see that in this movie. I enjoy it every time I see this movie, and it definitely stands as my favorite Godzilla film. But what about you guys? What are some of your favorite Godzilla films? I'd love to hear about it. Let me know in the comments. Well, that's all I've got on this one. So, until next time, thanks for being part of my geek world.